So a pretty common question is, what does the probate process entail? You've probably heard of probate, but what is that process? What does it require? I'm Sarah Siedentopf. I'm an estate planning and probate attorney in Atlanta, Georgia, and we're going to talk about what the probate process entails. And so the first part is filing the petition. You're going to file one petition if there's a will. You're going to file another petition if there's a will but you're not quite following it. You're going to file a totally different petition if there is no will at all, but you're going to pick the correct petition and fill it out for filing. You're going to need to get signatures of the heirs, and beneficiaries are people who are in the will. So if I give something to a friend in my will, that friend is a beneficiary. They're not a legal heir. Legal heirs are the people who would inherit if you didn't have a will. So the people who would naturally inherit have to have a chance to look at things and say, yep, I think that was what she meant. I think that's her signature. I think that's, really her will. And so you gather their signatures. If there's a minor involved, they cannot sign. So in that case, a guardian ad litem would have to be appointed. That is someone appointed by the court, often an attorney, but not always, who looks into the situation and makes sure that the minor is not being taken advantage of. So once they have investigated, they hopefully sign off on it. If we've got any heirs who haven't responded, haven't given signatures, you have to request that the court serve them, and the court will serve them with a petition and give them 30 days, so they'll have a notice date by which they have to object if they want to object. If no one objects, we're going to have to swear the oath, which basically says, I promise that all of the information that I've given to this court is correct and that I will administer this estate to the best of my ability. So after you've done that, if the will looks good and the judge is satisfied with everything, the executor is appointed if there's a will, or the administrator is appointed if there is no will. One of the first jobs this person, generally known as a personal representative, that sort of covers all the bases, has is filing a notice to debtors and creditors. There's a specific legal organ, which is a newspaper specifically designated for each county. And that is it's not one that anybody gets. It's a specific, there is a list of them, but that's where you have to file the notice that says, hey, you've got a set amount of time to let the estate know if there are any debts, and hey, if you owed this person money, you should come pay. I don't think that anyone comes and pays voluntarily, but creditors sure do monitor things and send in bills. And then we've got a waiting period in there because the notice has to run for 4 weeks. Then after the last one, they've got 90 days. So during that time, you're gathering any assets. You're opening an estate bank account. To open an estate bank account, you're going to have to file for a tax ID number for the estate. So you will have to do that. You will have to file any last taxes. If the person who passed away was receiving income, they might possibly need to file a final income tax return. Very occasionally, if you're dealing with a large estate or an estate that owns some income-producing asset, you might have to file an estate tax return, but that is much less common. And then once we've reached the end of our creditor period, we've got to pay off all those debts. And there might be some debts that you can negotiate, especially if you have an estate that really doesn't have enough assets to pay off the debts. So if you want to negotiate the debts, you can do that. Once you've either paid everything or paid everybody proportionally, because if there isn't enough money to pay everybody, everybody gets a proportional share. There are, certainly different varieties of creditors. So, the mortgage company with a lien on the house, they get all of that. But other creditors of the same ranking credit, various credit cards, medical bills, those sorts of things, they get paid pro rata. And then if there's anything left over, then we're looking at the will to see who's supposed to get it. And there is a priority of what has to be sold, if assets need to be sold to pay bills. But once the bills have been paid, you are handing out the things that beneficiaries are supposed to get. And then after all the bills have been paid, all of the assets have been handed out, then you are petitioning to close the estate. And so that is the legal process for probate in Georgia. There are, of course, many different situations that require different actions to be taken, but that's sort of the general process. But in essence, it is the court looking over your shoulder to make sure that the proper process is being taken for paying off bills and transferring things legally, so that things like real estate don't get tied up down the road. If you're in a situation where you need to know more about probate, I would love to hear from you, and please like and subscribe.